guys, you know this, you're in it. There's no other business that you have a combination of strategic thinkers that are trying to solve a problem and develop a strategy, and marry that with creative solutions to break through or to help propel business success. And just the talent, there's no one else. Where I got a little bit sick and tired is Wall Street, I don't think, views us that way. Marketing is the first thing cut heading to a recession or to crazy tariffs. Last thing restored. And the number of CMOs that make it into the boardroom has been declining over the past 20 or so years. So we wanted to do something about it. As we say, we'll put money where our marketing is and be judged by the impact, whether we're investing in a startup or helping a big company with a new DTC initiative or rebranding. We are unafraid to go in business with our clients because why wouldn't we?
Welcome to Best Story Wins. I'm your host, Jason Lenko, and I'm here with my co-host, Josh Ritchie. And today our guest is Michael Duda of Bullish. Hey, Michael. How
you doing, Jason? Josh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So tell us, what is Bullish?
Yeah, Bullish is an interesting mix. Is if you took agency people from pretty good and respected agencies, and then you married it with an investment fund. So yes, we run a marketing agency and investment fund. And on one hand, we'll invest in startups. We've been blessed to be the first investor in the likes of Peloton and Warby Parker and Casper and Bandit Running and Bubble Beauty. We'll often say money's the least valuable thing we bring. We have a marketing agency that helps with brand strategy, positioning, design, communications, and advertising. And it's open for other clients to hire outside the investments. So we've done work for big companies. We've done 3 Super Bowl spots the past 6 years and built a website for Jeff Bezos. So it's an interesting collision of Wall Street and Madison Avenue, if you will.
Yeah, that's cool. So what is your background and how did you get the idea to start Bullish?
Yeah, I'm an ad guy. I love it. I just been in it for a number of years. Probably most notably, I was at Deutsch with Donnie Deutsch for 14 years, both in New York and LA, and had so much fun. And there's no other business, guys, you know this, you're in it. There's no other business that you have a combination of strategic thinkers that are trying to solve a problem and develop a strategy, and marry that with creative solutions to break through or to help propel business success. And just the talent, there's no one else. Where I got a little bit sick and tired is Wall Street, I don't think, views us that way. Marketing is the first thing cut heading to a recession or to crazy tariffs. Last thing restored. And the number of CMOs that make it into the boardroom has been declining over the past 20 or so years. So we wanted to do something about it. As we say, we'll put money where our marketing is and be judged by the impact, whether we're investing in a startup or helping a big company with a new DTC initiative or rebranding. We are unafraid to go in business with our clients because why wouldn't we?
So what really, I know you're starting to touch on this, but what really inspired you to blend venture capital with creative capital at Bullish?
One wanted to understand, it's like, okay, if the money people are going to judge us, let's find out more about them. And the more I looked into it is, financial people are great. They have nice houses, God bless, all that stuff. But you can only financial engineer so much. And just saw an opportunity that where we love marketing people and get hired by marketing people, with that disconnect between that and the CEO boardroom, it's like, what if we created something that was more for ambitious CMOs that wanted to be CEO one day, or to work with CEOs who maybe question marketing, but respect the fact that we have a business model that will go into business together. And so as much as, we all have our private equity war stories and that side of it, we've found a group of people, and it's growing, that want to do business with us. And we see the world differently. And we're not afraid to do that. I mean, most agencies will try to be all things to all people. We're not that. We're for people who want to make a difference, not necessarily with an ad award, but with the bottom line.
So I'm curious, as someone that's worked with companies as they were just getting off the ground, like Warby Parker and Peloton, both household brands, is there something that separates the companies that are able to, figure things out and scale quickly and become beloved brands from those that just aren't able to figure it out and grow and, become companies that we all love and, want to use?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's the founders that we've seen to have the most success are those that are super passionate about solving a problem or giving a consumer a new option. And they are paranoid and hell-bent on making sure that customer doesn't have a negative experience. Or if she does, it's corrected right away. And if you think about it over time, legacy, like customer service departments almost play defense. So we don't get your money back or whatever. And early stage companies, for maybe what they don't have in terms of size and scale and distribution, they have an empathy. And that's why we like companies with a direct to consumer facet to it. Is people will literally pay you money to tell you what they think, and you can talk about it. Whereas the Procter and Gamble's of the world, if you will, their customers and clients have been Kroger or Walmart and Target. So like early stage companies are so dialed into what that consumer needs and will do right by it. And maybe not everything is completely scalable, but it's like leaders that obsess that way, tend to win out. And when you think about like marketing, the great thing is if you can infuse marketing and brand marketing and content marketing early on, you can embed that DNA and actually spend less money on overall advertising. When you get to a bigger company, they can't fix a customer service problem or it's tough. Then they spend more money in marketing and advertising. That's why people maybe don't love us. It's like, you sell me stuff I don't need. It's like, no, we're trying to, make the best out of maybe an unideal situation at its worst, or celebrate and getting awareness and trying to create trial for someone that could be intrigued by it. It's fun.
So you mentioned that relationship between brand marketing and content marketing. How do you see the role of content in brand building efforts in your portfolio companies and other companies you work with?
I mean, content marketing should be, if it hasn't had its day in the sun, it should more and more, because we talk about content as marketing. Content is a great way for a brand to kind of show its values, to participate, and to celebrate its consumer, whether it's like a mix of UGC and product on that side of it. Like content, especially now, we see what's working on various channels, but we'll take TikTok. You don't necessarily need to have the most awesome content, like precious and well filmed and famous directors. It just shows some voyeurism. And then other parts are just like, what does the consumer need on it? I mean, content marketing, you two are far more qualified than I, but content marketing is beyond just content. It's a chance for a consumer to like spend more time with you, answer their problems, develop stronger relationships, inform, maybe seed a new product announcement, listen, and celebrate. We were in a situation with Bubble Beauty, a 15-year-old girl in, I think, Omaha, Nebraska, went to Walmart and her mom allowed her to buy one thing, and it was Bubble Beauty. And she went on and she put a YouTube reel together, and she also did something on TikTok organically, and like, oh my God, I love Bubble. And that was real. It drove $900,000 in sales in Walmarts in 5 days. And it's just amazing. So content, like there's the right mix of having like what you put out there, but it's also what you want to celebrate that you don't necessarily control. And great brands know how to do that mix.
No, I think what you're saying there is spot on. So, one of the things, one of the dynamics of Silicon Valley is it's engineers and people with engineering background, or at least technical background, investing in engineers, right? You're a former ad guy. I'm curious if, or to what degree, like your ad background and your storytelling passion plays a role in deciding who you're going to invest in. Like, does it play a role? Does it play a big role? How do you explain that?
Yeah, and I'm still an ad guy, and I never want to lose that edge in practitionership. And that's why we say is, we have money, but it's like at the end of the day, it's like we want to actually help create the things and plans that our behavior. But storytelling is so huge. It's one of those things I can see it quicker than I can describe it. I would say the good Lord gives us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And the best founders that embrace, and there's some good CMOs that are on their way, and non-founders, not to leave them out, is that when you put the other person first and talk about the benefits and storytelling, not like how great brand X is, but in terms of what you could do or what you could accomplish on that side, and people aspire. Like one of the greatest ad campaigns of all time, like Volkswagen, drivers want it. I want to be that. Or Apple, only the crazy ones. I want to be a part of that. And that's a version of storytelling. And storytelling just does not have to be in ads. It's how people participate. Like Wendy's on Twitter/X at this point, right? Or other brands participating and making fun of themselves. The Pop-Tarts bowl game in college football is a weird one to say, but it's like, that's been genius. Or what Chili's is doing. So the great thing is storytelling isn't just for advertising. It's your narrative in terms of like the relationship you want to have with your diverse customer base.
So are there a few standout companies in your portfolio that you feel like are using content in novel ways or just generally impressive ways?
Yeah, we learned a lot from it. Bubble Beauty, which I mentioned earlier, is just it's like Neutrogena 2.0, CeraVe 2.0, which is like, for the moms and everything. Bubble, first, before they launched, they had a closed environment of 10,000 girls between 12 and 19 years old, and just learning about their skincare issues or what they worry about. And yes, 12-year-olds worrying about skincare issues. Yeah, that's a thing. And so when they launched, they actually used, it was an all content launch, all organic, nothing paid, celebrating various creators and influencers in their everyday life. Bandit Running is all about the community. And so there's a good mix of the things that they put out when they do drops, but other elements that they'll do and then storytell and do content plays later. Like the thing we're super proud of them to have worked on is there was the Unsponsored Project. And what that was, so Bandit's a running company, running apparel. And the Unsponsored Project last year was, there was a lot of, in 2024, there was athletes in track and field that were trying to compete to be part of the U.S. Olympic team. And a lot of them, I think 37 of them, didn't have sponsorship deals with a Nike and ASICS and Under Armour. And it's hard to compete when you don't have like those deals. So Bandit set it up, and they actually gave those 37 people or 35 people gear. Didn't have Bandit branding on it or anything like that. And that was just something that became content and stories and narratives that were told later, like building the brand through the plights of others. And that got out. And I mean, organically, it's done really, really well. We've seen it, especially on Insta and Reels, but also became a viral sensation thanks to CNBC of all places. So it's the different roles of content. It's just so great. But Bandit was all about their community, celebrates it, and will do things for it, and will storytell with content versus paid ads.
So we're recording this on April 17th. We're still kind of in the midst of the tariff upheaval, we'll just call it, or the trade wars. How is that and other shifts in the economy right now affecting how you're analyzing opportunities and what you're perceiving to be investable opportunities, since you have this big D2C focus in terms of who you invest in?
Sure, and I'll give an answer. We'll see how well this ages. Like for founders, like it's tough for founders. Like for the past year, it's like, okay, how do we navigate China and US? So maybe we'll do things in Mexico City or in Canada. It's like, oh, that's okay there. No, how do we get to Vietnam? It's like, man, whack-a-mole. Like who's got what tariff and what day? And I'll say this across the board, everyone's margins are going down. Everyone's, for privately held companies, we saw one PE firm has got a number of consumer companies. Literally within 8 days of the tariffs, they cut significantly a lot of the U.S. marketing, reallocated to other places in the globe where, like we'll say the UK or France, where, okay, if you buy those goods, we're not at the mercy of all the tariffs and everything. So why promote stuff that's not going to help our margin? That really hit. I've talked to 3 CMOs this week. One is a prominent B2B organization, 2 from consumer. And it's like the immediate thing was like travel restrictions and like cutting marketing. And so the forecast for Q2 or Q3 have gone down on that side. Again, marketing being the first thing cut. So it is a tough situation, but we're all dealing with it. I don't cry or drink too much over it. We're dealing in the same hand. So what do we do to listen? How do we be there for our customers who need us? Do we pass on like some of the tariff taxes, or do we eat them? We've had some of our companies do both. Try and change manufacturing on that side of it, but there's a lot of building the plane while flying it. But guess what? This too shall pass in some way, shape, or form, and marketers and founders will have a new thing to worry about in 3 or 6 months. But it's real. It's not a fun time right now.
So based on what you've been seeing, those are great insights. And based on what you're seeing, what do you think companies that realize, the value of investing in brand building activities are going to be doing less of or more of in this climate?
It remains to be seen. It's like when anyone goes into cut mode, you tend to get more conservative and get scared and go to tried and true. And, post iOS 14, we still see a lot of founders and a lot of companies spending too much purely on the bottom end of the funnel. And what's our attribution rate? Like all that. So and yet we've seen about an 80% increase over the past 7 or 8 months of like, how do you help us do a more fuller funnel approach? Like, what's the right mix of brand and marketing and digital acquisition and all that? And I think people are becoming more receptive to it. One, algorithms keep changing every day. Like, I would hate to be a growth marketer. God bless. What works on a Sunday may not work on a Thursday. But two, it's just like there's expressions where, like, I'll go back to things you could do that are expressed through content to tell your own story. So you can cut paid advertising, if you will, and commercially, but it's like, what are you doing on your own channels or other, like the YouTubes, the world, or TikTok that can be out there so you can keep participating in the conversation, stay relevant. The average consumer in the U.S. Faces 35,000 messages a day and has to make like 28,000 decisions. That's a lot. And it's quick twitch stuff. So if you're not doing anything, that's not a right answer. What is magical? It really depends who your customers are. We're seeing more B2B organizations really tight, like have sales come into the fold and like maybe overtake marketing instead of hiring a new marketing person on that side of it. That's dangerous for a variety of reasons. So we're seeing some B2B. We have a new B2B client on our agency side that we're trying to meld together marketing and sales together. One company out of Alabama has never had a marketing function. 80 million, it's only been sales, but they're saying things all over the place. So we're trying to streamline that and also put content to the world that tells their story from their words, but also embraces validation from some of their key clients. So it's a bit scattered, but it's like to just retrench, not do anything after a cut is silly. It's foolish. You still have to make plays.
Yeah, that's so great to hear that you're seeing more people wanting to do like full funnel activities. And, we've seen a million people chime in on this topic on LinkedIn and so forth. But in practice, it's still, you mentioned that dynamic of CMOs not always being in the boardroom, right? I think the more they're feeling pressure to connect everything to pipeline, right? Especially in the B2B world, the more there is that like gravity towards, okay, our ad dollars, we have to spend, $1 to make $5 within 3 months or within the quarter. How do you see that case being made successfully for going more towards the full funnel approach? Is it about setting the timeline, like time horizon expectations for the payoff and ROI, or how do you see that playing out in a way that is like maybe, acknowledging the reality of we got to make the quarter, we have a near term growth pressure to get to the next round of VC funding, et cetera, versus like, okay, let's play the long game and do this right?
Yeah, it's hard because it's easy to appear on podcasts and say, this is what you should do. And it's like, yeah, jerk, you're not getting a gun to your head. Like if I don't produce by the end of this month or quarter on that side, like, it's an easy game on paper, right? And then you get punched in the mouth. The reality is there's data to support how a fuller funnel approach works across various categories. And we have a lot of that. 2, A/B test. We're huge fans of testing and showing things in markets. So whether you're a B2C or B2B marketer or person, it's like look at different either sectors or segments or DMAs where like, okay, these are similar. Let's do certain things in this market to test out some of those brand approaches and have a stable against the other to do it. So you don't have to, it doesn't have to mean gobs of money, but expressions of it, quite frankly. But what we've seen over and over in the bottom line, and not everyone has like unlimited time. That's the thing. Same way you can't microwave a great steak. So you have to have the right mix. You still have to get like bottom line dollars coming in, but you have to have an appetite to test. And how do you do that? A/B test. Brand is too often quoted like, okay, so we should do a big ad campaign to do it. No, there's not like a 0 or 60. You can go in between. I go back to the early days of Warby Parker. Warby Parker had grown and was scaling very, very well, doing a lot of PR and digital acquisition. They did their first TV test and they figured out who their customers were and where they wanted. They picked out with a great media agency. There was Houston and Nashville and Cincinnati. And they were very similar in many ways. Didn't do anything with Houston. tested something slightly different in Charlotte and tested something slightly different in Cincinnati, or in Nashville and Cincinnati, and learned from that. And so, when we did this with brand, there was a 4-to-1 ROAS. We actually got measured. So, and it wasn't a tremendous amount of money. So yes, it is some money. I mean, unless you want to do some crazy PR stunts, but crazy PR stunts aren't necessarily like the thing you want to do when you're conservative. There's ways to test it. There's ways to be progressive, because if you're not, like, what's the downside, or what's the upside rather? You just got to sit there and wait for things to get better so you get your marketing budget restored. CMOs especially can use an opportunity, a crisis, to be an opportunity for not only their careers but their businesses. At the same time, the most effective CMOs aren't just glorified directors of advertising managing a budget. They get some access or understanding of the P&L. They'll have some input overseeing customer service or product innovation. Other part about the whether it's a customer journey or consumer journey on a DTC business, or on the B2B side, like to help affect the sales process on that. So there's many ways to do it, but it's not necessarily the most satisfying thing. But just sitting there like, yeah, you should be more fuller funnel. It's like, that'll get people to click off this podcast. There's ways to test, and happy to share with you and your listeners like stuff offline if there's ever interest.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've been talking to a ton of people about lately is just, as marketing has gotten more difficult in the last 2 years, I think that's something that most people could agree with. A lot of people are still kind of trying lots of different things, right? To kind of land on a few things that are working, that they can use to build some momentum. I spoke with someone yesterday that said that they have, I think it was 15 different social channels that they're working on, and it feels like they're just spinning plates. Curious to hear from you, like, as you guys are getting started with a new client, how many different channels are you focused on, or how many different motions are you running to just kind of understand, like, if we have something that we can then build on? Because I think that if you try too many things too quickly or just out of the gates, it can feel like not only are you kind of diffusing your focus in too many different directions, but it's also slow to get feedback, right? So how do you guys approach just that, like, getting started and getting clarity from the market so you can build momentum issue?
Yeah, and I'm going to use your question as part of the answer. Is first thing we try to do is get clarity of what the situation is. So we have an immersion process. We're going in 2 ears, one mouth, like asking more questions. So we do stakeholder interviews with the sponsors that have retained us, but also like who do they report to, and what the KPIs of everybody are. So we don't think in terms of channels. We're trying to solve a problem, and then what we come back with is here's what we've heard from different people. Hopefully it's on the same page. There's a good percentage that aren't, so we address that. If you don't have alignment internally, it's game over, and we've all seen that. And then we marry, okay, where do we think the opportunity is, and what do we know about the customer, and where are they, and who is she? And we're not talking about demographic stuff. Like, where our customer is 18 to 49, female. I've never met an 18 to 49-year-old. So we try to help develop a muse. So for like a beauty company, it was for one company, it was a 28-year-old mom of two in Cleveland that subscribed to New Yorker. And right away, you get a sense of like who that person is. It's someone that is like, maybe doesn't have all the money in the world, but is like interested in what's the shiny new toy things. And it's like, okay, where is she experiencing her life? And then we try to architect stuff like, how do we, for the different parts of what does she interact with? And is this an awareness message? Is this a trial, or is this some other different? And that's where it gets into, we recommend, X% of like an approach to content or advertising or marketing or PR, or let's launch a special new product, especially if there's strong data, to our best 1,000 customers and help them propel something into news. So we really look at things organically. I mean, we don't, we're not a full service agency. We're not 360, but we think 360. Like, we're not like, oh, well, we happen to do, TikTok, so we only have TikTok as a solution. And so we try to we'll develop a master plan for the brand and the solutions, and we'll architect, general contractor, and then rely on others like, oh, you should call this guy Jason. He's got a great content agent and they've done it for X, Y, and Z, or this media firm. We are trying to get closer to media. But we start with the problem and the objective and the task, and we work out versus, I think it's marketing malpractice to come to the table with like, here's what the solution is from what we do. Now, if you run a content agency, it makes sense. We're in the content business and this is what we do and we do well. We tend to start from all the way out and then like help find people like yourselves or others. But so we're kind of we're opinionated, but we're agnostic.
Yeah. And how much of your approach there is based on a playbook that you apply to every one of your clients versus a certain amount of it being more bespoke? Or is the bespokeness more in the execution?
It's interesting. I'd be curious what you've seen with clients. Like clients want a foolproof, validated approach, but they always color outside those lines. So we have one. It's a 4 eyes process. It's immersion, ideation, iteration, and implementation. And depending on what is needed and how much of it, like startups don't need as much validation of research. We worked with one big retailer that took 8 months of it, like ideation, because they needed to talk to like 350 people multiple times. So you do things like that. We try to work out from commercial deadlines. So it's like, we need to launch this new thing September 1st. It's like, okay, we can accelerate different parts of that. But that means there's certain things that maybe you can't do client. Or if it takes 7 days to do legal, that's going to be tough. So I'll say this, I've never seen a client that can work faster than us or most agencies on that side of it. Usually it's their internal politics that get in the way, but we have the 4 eyes process, but my partner Brent put this out there. Tighter systems make more flexible teams, and stuff's going to go off the rails. Shit's going to happen. Oh wait, I didn't have tariffs at 104% on my bingo card. Okay, what do we do now? So it's just like its ability to be agile. But we think we're more of a jet ski. I'd rather be that than an aircraft carrier, tougher to turn. But we have a tried and true process, but it's very rare that like anyone actually does it for the full duration exactly as planned. And it's not usually because of us, but that's real world.
On that note, how do you all typically set up with your clients? Is it in some cases you're essentially their marketing team, or do you all slot in as an extension of the team, or are there sometimes fractional roles that you all occupy?
It's funny. We're doing a bit of all three right now, and that wasn't the case 6 months ago. We at most agents say an extension of their team. I say like we're like the nanny, they're the mother. We're the personal trainer, they're the athlete. Like we want the athlete to do well. We love this kid and raise it, but you can only say no twice before, okay, it's your decision. So we're passionate. So we don't just do a waiter waitress thing. You want to do that? Okay, great. Our job is to provide perspective. Like, okay, you didn't necessarily hire us to do content or advertising. You hired us to get more sales and do this. So we could do that, but we don't think that's going to resonate with the consumer and the customer. So in a way, sometimes we get harder to work with. You could probably already tell I'm a pain in the ass to a degree, but it's like, okay, Mike's a pain in the ass, but he wants our business to do well, and he cares. So it's like, it's much more profitable not just to do what people want, but then that's not how you build a reputation. And our client, there's a certain prototype client that we go after. So our muse is a Bonnie Berger. She's a high flyer in the organization, maybe not the CMO, or has been the CMO, doesn't feel she needs the validation of hiring like a famous agency or be humbled by a 40 under 40 Ad Age award. No offense to Ad Age. But it's like someone who wants to solve a problem, knows there's got to be a different point of view, is ambitious, or realizes if this doesn't work, she could get fired. But is like willing to do what I think is right to do it. And that's gutsy. And that's not everybody. But those are the type of people that tend to hire us. They also tend to be CEOs that don't have a CMO or haven't done marketing because they don't trust marketing or something like that. And because we're involved with companies at the C level, there's that. So that's for us. One of the things I've learned, from an agent, like a lot of agencies don't try to stand out and stand for something because it's like, oh, you might eliminate, a certain cohort. It's like, I'd rather stand for something than nothing, right? It's, I laugh all the time. No one hates the Pittsburgh Pirates. People hate the New York Yankees. People love the New York Yankees. So it's like we try to stand for something and we're not for everybody. And we don't say that in an arrogant way. It's just like more matter of fact. And we've said like, we're not the right ones to help you. And that's why there's such great talent in this industry. And especially when we find agencies that care, like you guys. In fact, you do this podcast, like there's such great talent that has ambition, and it's finding the right chemistry. And there's a lot of people good at stuff, but it's also people that like who's the right fit, and that's what we search for. Hard to find it on LinkedIn, hard to find different things, but they're out there.
You've shared a lot of good insights about, the different ways you're seeing brands attempt to stand out. But I'm really curious, you mentioned even just now, sometimes it's hard to find any differentiated perspective, even on LinkedIn. I mean, that's probably not totally fair, but there is a lot of sameness, right? And kind of regurgitating of similar perspectives out there. How do you think brands should generally approach their content creation to actually stand out in a crowded market?
A couple of things. Content creation, especially, but almost everything should be off like what's our overall brand strategy and what's our overall mission. In situations, and we've seen this probably less than you, it's like when someone from the social team reaches out, hey, we need content, and they're like in a different universe than the CMO. It's like if it's a one-off, it's like that won't be as effective as to what is the content role within the company and all the marketing stuff. Alignment is the biggest thing on that. And some organizations have a junior like, okay, we'll do some content just because Gen Z likes content versus what are we trying to accomplish? So it's when content is really respected like everything else. And not to say it's disrespected, it just sometimes people too focus on like what the output and as a separate universe versus the overall architecture and messaging that you want to put out there. That's been the biggest thing that we've seen for success and failures or whatever. And usually you see budgets reflect that on that, or what's the old adage? You could do 2 or 3 things. You want it fast, cheap, and good. Pick 2 of the 3. You can't get all the 3. So, but different client organizations have different levels of respect of it. Like, even in shipping, FedEx versus UPS, like FedEx is a completely different culture that embraces more than UPS, which is more government and on that side of it. And so, but when content is aligned to what the overall mission is in some way, shape, or form, not completely out on an island, the better. Now for startups, content is a big part of it. And then usually at the founder level, that is like, it's a big part of it. So that's the fun that we get to see. And clients really, and brands really embracing that as a big part of how they're going to grow. So it's diverse. It's not always done right. But we see that a lot of things in an organization. But when alignment happens, things tend to be better than not.
No, I mean, I think alignment's everything, it's we've been talking a lot lately about just the value of momentum. And alignment is a precursor to that, right? You can't have momentum if you don't have alignment. Or sometimes as you're developing momentum, you can realize how misaligned you are or where you're not aligned on the most important things. And you got to, take a step back before you can take 2 more steps forward. And I think momentum is everything, whether you're a small company or a more established company. I was just reading something this morning about how, companies that are first to market used to have the overwhelming majority in terms of brand recognition. That's kind of going away. And now a lot of times the second company to market has just as good of a chance, if not a better chance, of basically becoming the leading brand, because a lot of times brands, as they evolve, as they kind of grow and as they mature, sometimes they rest on their laurels. And so I think, you have to always be operating with that momentum, and alignment plays such a key role in all that. I love what you were saying earlier too about like, no one hates the Pittsburgh Pirates. I think that's such a great soundbite. And as you start talking about like, there's people that love the Yankees, there's people that hate the Yankees. It's so funny. Like, I live in Southern California. I live right by Angel Stadium. My 2 older sons are huge baseball fans. They love the Angels and they hate the Yankees, and they've never been to New York. And like, you go all over America and like, that's the case. Like, there's people that hate the Yankees that have no real connection, but they just, for some reason, have been taught that like they're the bad guys. But you've never met a more loyal fan base than what the Yankees have. And so I'm curious, just like, and maybe you already answered this question by, saying what you said earlier about the Yankees and the Pirates, but I'm curious, is there a counterintuitive truth that you've learned about brand building that like you just love that most people miss? Is there something, I don't know, what shakes out when you hear that question?
Oh, Josh, good one. That's going off menu. I love that. The biggest thing I'll say is to founders is like, they're the chief brand officer. like when we see people like, oh, let's go hire the agency that did X, Y, and Z, and we benefit from that. It's like, nanny, you're the mother on that. And so you got to feel good at the end of the day. And sometimes their founders or stakeholders are so scared, like, oh, we go to an agency because they did that work, give us that. Well, that's not the right thing for you. And so, well, you're the guru, you're the expert. Like we see this a lot with financial firms. Like, well, we love what you did there, but it's like, well, that set of clothes may not fit you, if you will, on that side of it. So you have to feel good about it. And sometimes that's tough. Like, oh, I love that. Oh, but I don't like red. Okay, but do you like the idea? So coaching that is a big thing in there. But we again, we're in the professional services business, and that's the way we look at it. We're there to solve problems. We're there to push. But ultimately, we want people to feel good and embrace the kind of stuff that we ultimately make. And yet, we want to be good and break through. But there's a lot of great files in our servers, probably yours too, of like, ooh, that idea would have been 20% better had they done that, or what have you, on there. But that's the biggest thing is like, you're the stakeholder. Like we have a recommendation, but ultimately you have to live with it. And that's usually like clients or like the brands that don't have seasoned marketers. That's something that we feel. And you might have this too. Like when we see very sales-driven organizations, they might want to get like, we need a content agency to do a bunch of stuff. Well, they'll do it from a sales perspective, but not necessarily a brand perspective. And so I'm seeing head nods. It's like that happens a lot. Now, that's okay. Pay us. That's good. Our Christmas party just got a little bit better. Holiday party just got a little bit better, if you will, this year. But it's just to have the impact you want to have. It's like, how do we get that alignment? Or are we doing that? So our job is to make clients' jobs easier, not harder. But sometimes we'll press on that. But ultimately, we have a strong point of view. But and we want this to do great. But we also say it's like you have to make the decision at the end of the day.
Do you have a lot of clients, or have you had experience with clients that like almost want to vacate that mother role and just like have you step into that role using the mother nanny analogy?
We're doing that now temporarily for a Southern California based, it's a B2B and a B2C brand that we're investors in, and we're also doing the marketing for. And so we've just redone the brand, but they have franchisees and they'll buy certain companies and look to rebrand them. So transitional marketing. And how do you convince a very opinionated entrepreneur that all of a sudden sold their business, like we're going to rebrand? So it's like we're in that as well too. And there's great responsibility in that. It also has someone that is a strong salesperson that just joined that, God bless, isn't necessarily a brand person. So it's like, okay, how do we educate and learn from that person, but also equip them the tools that make sure like we're not necessarily looking for matching luggage, like branding has to be this and everything, but for all the different touch points, definitely have to look for some like, oh, that feels right. You've seen a lot of these companies, I know we have, where like, this feels like this feels like this, feels like this. Well, what's going to hurt more, like getting hit by 5 fingers or a fist? And so we try to make it a fist, whether it's like that sales sheet, that trade show should feel like it's from the same company that there's a Super Bowl commercial for. On that side. So there's got to be like consistency, but it's also going to be tailored to it. In content, and the role content plays, we worked with REI and we're partners with REI in different capacities. They rely heavily on PR, their database, their co-op, but they do content as almost like really their brand advertising and messaging and what they stand for. And if you go on YouTube, you see a lot of great videos that display its purpose. So in a case like that, it's like content that shows the purpose of the organization, and it's just like backing up the things that they say, not just putting it on a corporate slogan on the About Us page. They bring it to life. So it's, I went off the rails answering that question a little bit too, but it's just like that's the fun we get to have. Like just the same way doctors, you go into one, a doctor might see a patient like, oh, you have the flu. The next one, you have a broken leg. Our ability is to assess and figure out, like, we think this might be the right thing, but it's hard. I mean, one of the bigger issues, maybe more directly answer the question, is we see a lot of fracturing on the client side, and that's a big problem. Too many times, like, we don't know who the media agency is. We don't know where we're creating it for. And in big matrix organizations, they might have so many different agencies creating different things. There's no chance to get that fist. So it's tough for a chief marketing officer or someone in there to like galvanize and goat rodeo, because that person who's got that budget wants to make their own decision, have their own agency. And that person over there, they're not bad people. They're just human dynamics. So it's it's tough to be a client. I'll say that. I'm sucking up to probably a good portion of your listeners. I get that, but if I haven't already offended them at this point, but it is tough. I mean, business again is an easy game to factor in the human beings. And whenever you have human beings, you have a certain degree of politics and motivations and everything like that. That doesn't make us bad people. And so that's what strong corporate cultures can do, but also like leadership in the organization to ensure fists over fingers.
It's like golf. I think agency work is like golf. I was telling one of my boys the other day, I'm like, because he didn't like it. I took him to the range the other day, and it was his first time, and he didn't like it the first like 40 minutes or so. And then the last 10 minutes or so, he's like, I think I kind of like this, Dad. I'm like, well, welcome to golf. Like, like you can have 10 bad shots and then, have a great shot on one of your last holes of the day, and you can fall in love with the game, and you can't wait to play the next round. So, and I'm obviously being somewhat facetious here, but yeah, it's a line of work, and I think it's the same for people that are agency side or brand side. It can be infuriating at times, but also there's just something so addictive about it because you get to work with so many awesome people. You get to solve problems. You get to use your analytical brain, your creative brain, and seeing something that you've worked hard on, you care about, that you fought for, like see the light of day. It's a really cool feeling.
That's so funny. I was at out at PGA West in the desert here in California, and I am not a golfer at all. But I was out at the driving range, and I think I was hitting so poorly that they were like, "You don't belong here." The ranger came up and he's like, "Hey, do you have a tee time?" I was like, "No, I'm just hitting balls." He's like, "Okay, like, are you here with a member?" And I was like, "Yeah, they're up in the clubhouse." And I thought he drove off, and I kept hitting just terrible. And then I finally just got a hold of one, and I didn't realize he was still sitting back there. And he's like, "There you go." And I was like, "Yeah, one out of 10 times I get a hold of one." And he's like, "Well, that's better than 1 out of 11.
And it's so funny because tee up this thing, it's not moving, just hit it. And it's like, if I could take my head off with all the swing thoughts, that's it. But you get that feel of contact, like, ooh, that good, that sound, that feel. And then you're doing the pose, like it went straight, didn't do a duck hook. I am with you guys 100%.
So is there anything you're working on that you want to give a shout out to?
I mean, this is going to sound trite. Like we're actually about to announce a big golf proposition that we created from scratch. This brand content's going to be a big play when it comes out in 2027. It's going to be the first location. It's going to be amazing. So I'm going to give a shout out to something I can't mention yet. It's about that. But it's going to be in golf, and then Google Bullish along with it. They'll be out there. But it's like there's some great founders. When you look at like Sunday Lawn, and Coulter Lewis is doing heavy content play, by the way. Great storyteller. Harry's, a company that basically incubated, sat with us for 8 months in our back office, and we helped with a bunch of brand stuff along with some other partners. Now there's this huge company that's on there. I give a shout out to the teammates of Bullish. They're doing great. I feel like I'm getting a Grammy right now, so I'm going to own this podium. But it's and people like Chelsea Phillips at Anheuser-Busch. God knows there's a lot of people at Anheuser-Busch that don't like me, but she is great. She's been a great partner, but there's great partners out there, but there's a bunch of great. So how's that for the acceptance speech when you didn't write the acceptance speech?
So where can our audience learn more about Bullish and your research?
Bullish.co, not .com. I was too cheap to buy the .com, so bullish.co is good. And to what we were talking about earlier, we're doing a lot on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is really like the publishing play. I mean, recency is such a big thing because most marketers don't know a lot of agencies, if any. So we're publishing our point of view on LinkedIn, Bullish or Michael or Mike Duda, whatever I'm known as there, on that side of it. And Google, hopefully there's good things in Google and whatever part of the world that you're Googling us in. But, we've been blessed with some great articles from Ad Age, A-List Award to we have a trademark, we have a patent. We're America's most dangerous agency. It costs us money, but have some fun with that. And we know a lot about DTC and helping either small brands become bigger ones or big brands stop a decline. So and it's so much fun. And I just love podcasts like yours that it just, it's not like content. You're celebrating content, but you're also like in the ecosystem it exists in. So love what you guys are doing. So hopefully you're making boatloads of money from it because it's good work.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. It's been great talking with you.
Thanks, Michael.
Take care, guys.